Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today I'm going to be continuing my 2019 reading wrap-up with books 21 through 30. It's been quite some time since I've read a lot of these. Life in general has gotten a little crazy and I fell really far behind with these, so now I'm trying to play catch up. I've got this one and one more to film, so we're just going to try to get it done. I'm going to give you guys some quick mini reviews of books 21 through 30 that I read in 2019. The 21st thing that I read in 2019 is Aqua Cove by Katie O'Neill. I originally read this for the BookTube SFF Awards in the graphic novel section. This is a graphic novel that actually is for a much younger audience, so you should know that going in, that it's for kids and it's not a graphic novel that's for teens or adults. I mean, teens and adults would still enjoy it, but it's targeted towards young children. And so because of that, it has a little bit more of a simple art style, and the message that it's giving, which is like protect the seas, protect sea life, stop throwing our trash in the seas, and protect coral reefs. All of that is very heavy-handed, but it's a message that I really enjoyed, so I enjoyed this for the target audience. I don't know if it's gonna be for everyone, but if you have young people in your life that love the sea, I think that they would really enjoy this. Or if you just want to have that conversation with your toddlers or your young children about being eco-friendly and stuff like that, I think this is a good one to check out. A couple of things that I wish had been included. One was I wish that they had talked about taking sea life away from the ocean in the graphic novel. She finds this aquacorn, which is basically like a seahorse with a unicorn horn. She takes it home and puts it in a mason jar, and I just didn't love that because we have a problem with putting animals in too small of enclosures, like saltwater fish. You want to try to get the biggest tank possible to give the fish more room to swim, and you shouldn't be putting like hippo tanks, which is Dory, in tiny little tanks. They won't do well and they'll always die. So I wish that that had been reflected in this graphic novel, which, I mean, I'm getting a little nitpicky, but I think that it's important if we're going to be talking about saving animal life and everything like that. One other thing that I wish had been in the actual meat of the story was that when the coral reefs start to die, they turn black, which is not really what happens immediately. They turn white, which is called bleaching. They show bleaching at the end after the book is over, so you see all the white coral and everything like that. But I guess in the actual graphic novel, it could have been like cyanobacteria or something like that growing on the coral pretty quickly, but I don't know, I just thought that it would be important to show bleaching, and then what happens after is when all this algae and stuff starts growing on them. So nitpicky, but one thing that I did really love was I really liked seeing that her aunt had like this relationship with the sea queen thing. It was really cool, liked that, liked the message, so I ended up giving this 4 stars. The next thing that I read was A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. This is the second book in the Wayfarers series, is that right? I can't remember the name of the series now. Anyway, this one follows a specific character after the events of the first book, so I can't really talk about anything that happens plot-wise without spoiling you for the first book. I will say that I did enjoy this one a little bit more than The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I thought was a little, well, not a little. I thought it was very heavy-handed with the messages that it was trying to get across, and this is an adult science fiction novel, so I don't feel like it needed to be that, like, beat you over the head, be accepting of other people, be accepting of other cultures, just be really accepting of other humans and how they live their lives. I thought that it could have been a little bit more nuanced instead of feeling like I was being lectured at a little bit. Anyway, this is the second book, which I enjoyed a lot more. It still has very heavy-handed messages and stuff like that, but I just liked the story a little bit better. One of my main problems with this series is that I just feel like everyone in it is too, like, perfect. Not that they don't make mistakes, but that the exact moment that they make a mistake, they realize it, and then they have like the perfect subsequent action to that. They're always incredibly apologetic, they're incredibly understanding and everything like that, and I just don't think that that's how people would be even in the future. There's always going to be groups of people in the world that are sheltered and are not taught to be accepting, and you're gonna run into those people. And with that everyone being so perfect thing, it didn't feel like the characters were having to really overcome all that much to continue doing what they were doing or to continue to work towards their goals. There wasn't that much of a present obstacle for them to overcome, which kind of detracted from my enjoyment. I think that the stories are really sweet. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's not anything that wowed me or anything like that. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I think it would have been a little bit higher, but I thought that the ending was very, very rushed, and I didn't feel satisfied when I finished it because the ending was so rushed. Next, I read Check Please. Year 1, I believe, is like the subtitle. That is by Ngozi Ukazu. I apologize if I said the name wrong. This one follows a character named Eric Biddle, and his friends call him Biddy. He is a freshman in college. He has joined the ice hockey team for his university. I can't remember exactly, but he somehow goes from a figure skater in high school to a hockey player at university. And it just follows him being on this hockey team, being friends with the hockey players, and the things that they get up to. I really enjoyed this. I didn't know what to expect because I am not a huge fan of hockey, but I think that people that aren't a huge fan of hockey are still gonna really enjoy it. Biddy is like the sweetest character you'll ever meet. Cinnamon roll characters don't hold all that much appeal for me usually, but I freaking love Biddy. He's so sweet. He bakes for his teammates. He's also a vlogger, so during the course of the graphic novel, he breaks that barrier and he talks to the reader, his viewers, and he vlogs about cooking, but is also a hockey player, and he keeps people updated on his hockey life and everything like that. As I said, I freaking adored this. I really liked that they're not always successful. I loved the team aspect, the way that they give each other nicknames, and the house that they all live in, which is called the House, H-A-U-S, is so close to how a fraternity is in real life. So it was just really reminding me of times that I had when I was in university and hanging out with my friends at our frat house. And even some of the characters that are on the hockey team really reminded me of people that I knew in university. So it was just very, very funny. I think that it was really done quite well. I definitely recommend this one. I forgot to say that Biddy is gay and he ends up having a relationship with someone else that's on his team. It doesn't show up until the very end, which I thought would happen a lot sooner, but just know that going in as well if you're looking for more graphic novels or comic books with gay main characters. That's a good one. After that, I read Wondersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crowe by Jessica Townsend. This is the second book in the Nevermore series, I believe is what it's called. I also read this one for the BookTube SFF Awards. This one was nominated in the middle grade category, and the first book won the awards last year. This one won the awards this year, I think for both the popular and the judges' vote. I just love Morgan. I love her story. If you guys don't know, it follows this girl named Morgan Crowe. At the beginning of the first book, she knows that she's a cursed child, and on her birthday, she's supposed to die, but she doesn't want to, obviously. Right before that happens, she ends up getting whisked away to Nevermore, where she is able to compete in this tournament-style competition to earn a place in the Wondrous Society, which would allow her to survive and keep going instead of dying. Only hiccup with that is that to join the Wondrous Society, you have to have, I forgot what it's called, you have to have some type of talent, and she doesn't have one. This one follows what happens in the first book, so I can't talk about it too much without spoiling it, but I also gave this book 5 stars. I gave the first one 5 stars. When I read this one, I don't know why, but I was kind of looking for a reason not to, which was a weird mindset to go into this book with. People say that the first book reminds them of Harry Potter, and I actually do agree with that to a point. I do think that the beginning of the first book is a little Harry Potter-like. Not the fact that she's gonna die or anything, because Harry isn't gonna die. Well, I do think that at the very beginning, the two are quite similar, and then Morgan Crowe branches off and does its own thing. It's its own story, and it's very enjoyable as it is. I do think that the second book also had some Chamber of Secrets vibes, which was interesting, so it seems to be following a similar pattern to how Harry Potter was, which is fine by me. I'm really enjoying it. She's this child that people don't understand, and they don't really know her that well, which is how Harry was. She also has something about her that she can't change, similar to how Harry was in the second book, and people judge her for that and ostracize her, and she has a hard time trying to fit back into the society and trying to make friends and keep friends. I do think the two series are a little similar in vibe, but I think that they're very, very different. For this one, I really loved this continuation. I loved seeing her struggle once she gets into the situation that she's in at the end of the first book. I really loved seeing all of the magical elements in this one. I thought that it was done really, really well. There are these alleyways that once you start to go down them, different things start to happen, so you could end up somewhere else that you didn't think that you were going to end up in. The alleyway can get smaller and smaller and smaller. You could start to feel sick. So I really loved these different magical elements that were brought into the story. I was really entertained. I really love Morgan, as I've said like 3 times already. So again, I give this one 5 stars. Definitely recommend this one. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite middle grade series. After that, I read The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. I actually read this one so that I could talk about it on a podcast with a couple of my friends, Maddie and Sweeney. I will leave a link down in the description to the podcast that I was on, because that has since been put up, and you can listen to it if you want to. It is spoiler though, so if you haven't read the series, I don't know if I recommend listening to that, because I do think that I ask a question about the 3rd book in the first podcast. So if you're worried about getting spoiled, just beware of that before going in. If you guys somehow don't know, there is a TV show that's coming out that's based off these books. I'm actually recording the last books podcast tonight when I'm filming this. If you guys don't know, these books follow a character named Lyra, and she is living at Jordan's College? I can't remember the name of the college. And in this world, people have what's called demons. Demons are like their spirits that are with them and can communicate with them, so they can have conversations with their demons, but the demons are a part of them. So if you touch someone's demon, which is not a thing that people do, the human can feel it as well. If one dies, the other dies as well. The whole situation with the Golden Compass is that children are starting to go missing. One of Lyra's friends gets taken, and Lyra wants to track them down and save them. In the subsequent books, it gets a lot bigger and a lot more crazy, but for this first one, I really enjoyed it. I think it's one of those books that if you have people to talk about it with, it makes it a lot better. Because at first I wasn't fully sure how I felt about it, and I actually left it unrated for quite some time until we recorded that podcast and I could talk to them about it and see how excited they were, and really realize the elements that I wasn't fully thinking about or picking up on. A couple of things that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Lyra as a main character. She is a little liar, which I think is very accurate for that age. They tell tall tales. They make everything seem a lot more grand than it actually is. And Lyra is exactly like that, which I really enjoyed. And another thing that I just really loved was all these demons. I'm like, I want a demon now. There are a group of polar bears that can communicate and have wars and have armor. There's witches. There's a lot of things magically going on that were really entertaining, and I really thought that the commentary on organized religion was pretty interesting. It definitely brings up questions about the reliability of organized religion, and who do you believe? Do you believe like your own conscience, and do you believe what your gut tells you, or do you just follow what these people say because they said it and they're in a position of power? Stuff like that. Really thought it was interesting. I do think that this first book was a little hard for me to get invested in at first. It took me a while, and then it kind of crept up on me. I was reading it and I wasn't really all that into it or whatever, and then suddenly I realized that I was really invested in Lyra and really invested in her story, and then finished the book really quickly after that. So if you're not enjoying it at first, I would say maybe give it a little bit more just to see if you're like me and your love for Lyra is something that sneaks up on you, because I think that that is what happened with me. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It would not be one of my videos if the battery did not die while I was filming. The 26th thing that I read in 2019 is The Adventure Zone, Here There Be Gerblins, by a whole slew of people that are all related. Like a bunch of brothers, and I think their dad as well. So basically what this comic book is it's a physical form of a podcast that the authors do. The authors at first did a podcast where they were playing a D&D style game, and then it became so popular that they turned it into a graphic novel. So it's one of those things where there's like 2 layers to the story. So there's the humans that are playing this game, and then there's also the characters who are experiencing the game and are being controlled by these humans. So the characters in the game will talk to the Dungeon Master, I believe that's what it's called. I don't know how to play D&D games. It was interesting. This was nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards in the comic book / graphic novel section of the awards. It pays to know about Dungeons and Dragons or those style of tabletop games, and it also pays to have listened to at least the first episode of their podcast, so you can get a feel for the tone of the different players and the tone of the authors. I think that it really, really benefits you if you listen to them setting up the game and playing the game and how everything is starting to unfold, because I read the comic book without doing that and I wasn't as invested as I think I could have been. It's a really, really like ridiculous, lighthearted story. It's very fun, it's very self-aware, which I really enjoyed, but I just didn't like know enough and I didn't really care enough, if that makes sense. So because I don't know this podcast and because I don't know these characters or anything like that, I just kind of was like, okay, this is happening, this is fine, but I wasn't fully into it. And I think that for people that like that podcast, they probably freaking love this. It was just kind of like a personal disconnect with me. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because it was fun. I did enjoy it, but it's not one of those things that I'm itching to learn more about. I'm not gonna pick up the next volume or anything like that. So sad, but good for the audience that it's for. The 27th thing that I read in 2019 is The Remarkable Inventions of Walter Mortensen. This is by Quinn Sosna Spear. I apologize if I said your name wrong. This is a middle grade novel that follows Walter Mortensen in his town. He's a bit of an anomaly. His father is not from the town and everyone loved his father. His father had all these different types of inventions that really helped the people of this town, really helped this whole section of the world. And his mother's family are the morticians of this society, so people don't really love that. It really kind of comments on how fearful people are of death and dealing with those types of things. People will push it off and really avoid anything that has to do with that. So because of that, Walter is a bit of both. So people just kind of push him into the let's just ignore him and not talk about him and like not interact with him. At the beginning of the book, he really doesn't want to be a part of this family business. He wants to be an inventor, but all of his inventions are a little creepy. Like he uses dead animals' bones and stuff like that. But he does want to follow in his dad's footsteps. He is contacted by, I forgot the name of this person. He's a big famous inventor that Walter looks up to, and at the beginning of the book he's contacted and asked to come there. So Walter wants to go meet this inventor and just learn this trade. He brings along one of the students from his class that has her own reason for wanting to go to this world famous inventor, and then it follows their journey from town to town as they deal with the different things that are in each town, and then eventually getting to the inventor and everything like that. I really enjoyed the writing of this book. I think that it really was reminiscent of like a Roald Dahl or a Neil Gaiman style. So I really enjoyed the kind of creepy atmosphere and I really enjoyed the writing. I liked the characters and everything like that. I didn't fully love the story, and the reason is because I think that the plot suffered, especially towards the end. I think I could also just be being like a little bitter at the end because it's not the happiest of endings ever. And I do think that some of the things about the ending were kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird. So it was a weird situation where I really liked the original idea, I really liked the writing, really liked the characters, but then I was disappointed in the direction that the story went, which, I mean, that's the author's prerogative. I have no control over that. I don't have control over any of it, but I just didn't end up loving it. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I do think that it's a really, I would say, fun romp until it's not fun anymore. I just think that it builds and builds and builds, and then the ending is just kind of disappointing, which was disappointing. Next up, I read The Hive Queen by 2E.T. Sutherland. This is the, what is this? The 12th book in the Wings of Fire series, which is one of my favorite middle grade series of all time. I have talked about it so much on this channel because I've read the previous 11 books plus the prequel. If you guys can't tell by the covers, these follow different dragons, dragonettes, because they're young dragons. Basically, every 5 books is a different arc, and in each arc, it follows a group of dragonettes that has to save the world in a new way. In this arc, we found out that there's another continent, which brought in a lot of new types of dragons, which I've been really enjoying. I really like seeing the different dynamics between the different groups, because we are so used to the Dragons Imperia, which is the name of the continent of the first 2 arcs of the story. We got really used to the dynamics between the different groups of dragons there. There are rain wings, there are sea wings, there are mud wings and sand wings, ice wings, and night wings. And we knew how all of those different groups thought about each other. So in this one, it really shakes things up, which I have, again, really been enjoying. The character that this book follows specifically is a character named Cricket, who is my favorite of this arc of the series. She's incredibly inquisitive. She always asks the questions that I myself am asking while reading the story. Like when you guys are reading a story and you don't understand why the characters are acting in a certain way and why they aren't just doing this thing which would solve the problem, Cricket asks those questions and it makes it a lot more enjoyable. So I enjoyed her keeping this series in check and always making sure that everything makes the most sense that it could. I also really like a character in the series that's named Sundu. She's hilarious. I've been really enjoying her. I can't really talk about it other than that because this is so far along in the series, but the writing has continued to be just as fantastic as the original 5 books. I've really enjoyed all the new characters that have been introduced. I enjoyed how she expanded the world. I enjoyed this new problem. So, safe to say, I'm really enjoying it, and I gave it 5 stars. The 29th thing that I read in 2019 is Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Ben. In this one, we follow a couple of characters who are sisters. We follow Margot, who's the older sister who has been working at a hotel. She also is a sex worker on the side, slash is like how she makes the most money, because a lot of the clientele that come to this hotel are looking for that service, and she provides it on the down low and gets money from that. She's been working so hard so that she can save up enough money to send her younger sister to medical school so that she can become a doctor and elevate their entire family. And then it also follows Tandi, who is in high school and is dealing with a lot of racism and colorism. At her school, the lighter you are, the more attractive you are, and the prettier you are, and the more successful you're gonna be. So she's been trying to lighten her skin tone by doing this like whole chemical process, which is terrible for you, and she's trying to keep it a secret because she knows that she's, 1, spending money on it that she shouldn't be spending money on, and 2, that people would judge her for lightening her skin, even though these people that already have light skin are benefiting from that. Does that make sense? This is a much slower paced novel, so know that going in. It's also very adult. There's a lot of sex in this, obviously, because she's a sex worker and there's violence and everything like that. It definitely addresses a lot of different problems that are current in Jamaica, especially like corruption, racism, colorism, homophobia, just sexuality in general, as well as other things that aren't coming to me currently. And I really, really enjoyed it for that. These characters are so real. Like, you can exactly picture how they are, their family dynamic. The ways that they respond to a lot of the things that happen in this novel is so realistic that I just feel like these are real people. Margot and Tandi's relationship is such a complicated one because Margot loves Tandi and Tandi loves Margot, but they have such different wants for Tandi's life. Like, Margot wants Tandi to go to be a doctor and to raise their family's societal status, but Tandi doesn't necessarily want that, and there's a lot of friction between them because of that. The way that they interact with their mother is very strained, and I enjoyed reading that as well. Her mother is, like, their mother is the worst person. Even though they aren't making the best choices, they're making the choices that they think is best. Does that make sense? I really enjoyed it for all of that. I actually read this as an audiobook, and I do recommend that. Bonnie Turpin is the audiobook narrator, and she is quickly becoming one of my favorite audiobook narrators. I love how she does it. I think this is the 2nd audiobook that I've listened by her, and I've also read another one since I read this. So she is definitely one of my favorite narrators. So if you can get your hands on the audiobook, she's great. The only thing with this one was that the ending was very open-ended, and after investing so much time and seeing so much suffering with all these characters, I really wanted to know where they were at the end of the novel. We just kind of get like a couple of events that happen and then that's it. I'm like, what happened? Where did all these characters go? What is up with them now? I was really wanting that information and we just don't get it. So that's something that really affected my reading experience. I forgot to say that Margot is a lesbian, so that's where the homophobia subject comes in. I didn't even address that. I ended up giving this like 3.5 stars, but that's a totally like personal thing because I really didn't like how open-ended the ending was, and I wish that it had been more wrapped up. But I do recommend this one if it at all sounds interesting to you. I want to read some of her other books. I think she has one about someone from Jamaica coming to the United States, which is what she did. The author is originally from Jamaica, and she's lesbian, so it's own voices for that as well. I just want to check out some of her other works and see how they are as well. And the 30th thing that I read in 2019 is Black Wings Beating by Alex London. He also goes by C. Alexander London when he's publishing middle grade stuff. In this one, we follow two characters. They're twins, Bryson and Kylie. In this world, there's like a huge focus on, oh my gosh, I forgot the term of it, but they like are obsessed with birds and they keep birds and falconry. Is that what it's called? Even if they're not falcons? Anyway, their whole magic system is kind of based around these birds. And in this world, they're on the cusp of a war. But a lot of these situations are religious based, so there are different religious groups that hate each other. There are religious groups that think that bird keeping, falconry, is heresy and that these people that do it should be eliminated. There are people that think the exact opposite. I liked the political setup of this world. I thought that it was really well done. I really liked these desert people. I really liked the people that keep these birds. I really liked that in this mountainous area of this world there's a group of women very similar to the people in Skyrim. What are they called? The Greybeards, but they're women obviously, and they're like owl women. They have all these secrets and these like magical words and everything like that, can control birds. I really liked the magic and the setup. The characters were not some of my favorites. Basically, Bryson wants to be this big shot falconer. He does these hit battles between falconers. He sends his birds to attack other birds, that kind of thing. He also is trying to impress his falconry teacher. They're together and Bryson is totally in love with his falconry teacher. Kylie is someone who constantly complains about not being appreciated enough. She does all these things for her family, but people don't really recognize her for sacrificing so much. And she also has her own problems other than that. At the beginning of the book, a situation arises where Bryson decides he's going to put his life on the line, basically, to save his boyfriend, and Kylie follows Bryson to make sure that he doesn't die. Bryson is not a very good falconer. Where Kylie is like naturally gifted. She can naturally just control birds. I'm not doing a very good job describing this. Anyway, that's basically the premise. He's trying to save his boyfriend, Kylie's trying to save her brother, and there's a lot of stuff about birds. As I said, I really liked the bird element. I thought it was really well done. I will warn people though that there are some pretty violent things that happen with these birds, so if you're not wanting to read about animal deaths, stuff like that, maybe avoid this one, but it does get a little gritty with the birds. I really enjoyed the politics. I liked these different players that are trying to gain power for themselves. Some people are better at it than others. Like there's one guy who is just so stupid. And I like that this world is kind of ramping up for this war. It actually made me want to continue reading. I just don't really like the characters very much. I think Bryson is so dumb and I just don't care about him. I kind of want him to die so that we don't have to follow him anymore. I understand his motivations. He wants to save his boyfriend, but his boyfriend really sucks. I couldn't really understand why he was putting so much on the line for this random guy who doesn't even treat him very well. I mean, I guess I can, but I really couldn't. And then Kylie, she's a little more bearable, but she's so annoying because all she does is talk about how people don't appreciate her, and then she continues to help the people that don't appreciate her. So, I don't know. I wanted to like this so much, but I just didn't care about the main characters, which was a big thing. I'm probably gonna give the second book a shot, so we'll see about that one. I ended up giving this one 3 stars because I really liked all of the foundation. I just didn't like the characters we followed. So, personal preference, but yeah, 3 stars. So those are the next 10 things that I read in 2019. This was a long video. I did not realize that I remembered so much about all of these, so I apologize for that. Hopefully the next 10 books will be coming out shortly because I want to get caught up. I want to get back into doing individual book reviews. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read any of these books. What were your thoughts on them? If you have anything else you want me to know, leave it down below, and I will talk to you guys next time.